Good morning, everyone. Seeing how the time has arrived, I will call to order the Wednesday, December 6, 2017 meeting of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. We will begin this morning with the flag salute led by Director Al Howard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if I could have the clerk call the roll, please.
Howard.
Here.
Baker. Here. Broadway. Here. Esch. Holmes.
Here.
Nader. Powers. Here.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to item C, approval of action minutes of October 25th. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve action minutes of October 25th.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of October 25th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Agenda review. Now is the time to go over our agenda. Is there anyone on the board that wishes to make any changes to the agenda?
I will make a note that you have an orange paper that is for agenda item I, that is an update of that item.
All right, that's it. All righty, very well. Then seeing no revisions or changes, we'll move, first of all, I'd like to recognize Mr. Hesh. Thank you for being here today. And since you are here, we have a small presentation for you, sir.
I already have my cookies, sir.
Oh, well, you can have mine. Well, Tony, you've been a member of this agency board for quite a while, and I just want to personally say how much I appreciate your input. You're always very thoughtful. You've been able to get some things done for Colfax, and we're going to miss you here. But anyhow, we have this real nice plaque that we're going to present to you. Presented to Tony Hesh. Oh, come on up, Stan. Go ahead.
He was on the same bus that I was.
Oh, was he? Oh, you must have been in the front row. Presented to Tony Hesh in appreciation of his dedicated service as a champion of transportation improvements for all jurisdictions, an advocate for airport land use compatibility in Placer County, and providing guidance and support in finding solutions to transportation challenges. From the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Board of Directors, 2013-2017. Tony Hesh is commended for actively and effectively serving as a representative for the city of Colfax toward the betterment of the entire county. And so we'll bring this forward to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice. I guess we don't have any.
I would just like to thank everybody. Sitting on the board has been a real joy. Meeting with staff and of course our leader. It's been great. I've learned a lot. And most of it's been good. Some of it's been frustrating.
Oh, yes.
Both not so much here, but certainly at the city. I think we all know about that. And having said that, thanks again. You've just been a delight to work with, and I'll carry the memories with me for a long time.
Thanks, Tony.
My pleasure.
Now is the time for a public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on any item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move to item F, approval of the consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested citizen may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any items that anybody wish to move anything from the consent? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, and the motion is approved, and we will now adjourn as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency and convene as the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. And we have another consent calendar. Is there anything on the consent calendar that needs to be removed for discussion? Alrighty then, I will accept a motion to approve.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Moved and seconded to approve consent calendar for the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. And now we will adjourn as the Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency and convene as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. And we will move to item H, the Highway 65 Widening Preferred Alternative Project Alternative.
Good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. We're going to be giving a presentation on the Highway 65 widening project and discuss the comments received on the draft environmental document. The project extends for 6 miles on Highway 65 from Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road in the cities of Roseville and Rockland up to Lincoln Boulevard in the city of Lincoln. The improvements that are proposed do connect with the proposed improvements as part of the Interstate 80 State Route 65 interchange and also Placer Parkway. Along the way, we've developed 4 key goals, and that's based on input from our project development team, which includes all the local agencies, Caltrans agencies that you see here, and also based on input from the PCTPA board. And our 2 key main focuses is to reduce existing congestion and improve safety. Another key part of the project is to provide additional roadway capacity to accommodate anticipated and planned growth in South Placer County. This is a photo from this year looking south from the Sunset Boulevard overcrossing. Currently, traffic is backing up 3 miles on southbound Highway 65, and that's causing about 20% of the traffic on the freeway to divert to local roadways during the peak commute periods. This is a photo looking south from the Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road overcrossing, and the Highway 65 widening project's going to need to accommodate all the traffic that's currently backing up on northbound Highway 65 onto Interstate 80. We began the environmental process in 2014, and at that time we held a community meeting in Lincoln where about 30 people attended. We also had 6 town hall meetings throughout the county where we presented the project. And then in 2016, we gave an update on the project to the Roseville Transportation Commission. More recently, we've had presentations to the Sheridan and rural Lincoln MACs, and then throughout the process, we've been providing updates on the project website, through newsletters, and also on social media. I now want to introduce Matt Brogan from Mark Thomas and Company. He's our consultant project manager, and he's going to go over the comments we received on the draft environmental document and also walk through the proposed project alternative.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Good morning, board members. And just wanted to talk through the draft environmental document and some of the comments received, and then step through the preferred alternative. We did complete a 30-day public review. This was in the spring, May 12th to June 14th. And within that review, we received 18 total comments, 5 from local public agencies, 1 from the local United Indian Tribe, 10 individuals, and 1 organization. I'm going to step through a couple of the comments and some of the responses that we anticipate in the final environmental document. So the first comment was from an individual and was related to a noise study and the potential need for a sound wall up adjacent to 12 Bridges Drive, and the comment was a request for that sound wall adjacent to the residential units next to 12 Bridges and the local school there. As you can see from the graphic, the community is about 2,500 feet away from Highway 65. The response to that comment was that our noise analysis did not show the need for any noise mitigation, and therefore a sound wall would not be provided. The next set of comments was from groups really related to regional transportation improvements, and the comment was specifically to evaluate non-roadway widening alternatives for accommodating future traffic, and that would be alternate modes of traffic, transit, bicycles, pedestrians. That is outside of the scope of the widening project. It is one component of the future transportation system, but it really is being handled with other regional documents such as the Bikeway Master Plan and the Regional Transportation Plan is where those alternative modes of transportation along the Highway 65 corridor are anticipated and covered. The next comment, and we received a few of these, is actually in support of the project, in support of the widening. The comments from local business owners about how the freeway widening will really support and positively impact the existing businesses along the Highway 65 corridor. As you can see from the graphic, there's a number of commercial businesses along this stretch of Highway 65, and the economic development was a key component of the project purpose and need, and will really be enhanced with the widening project. And then finally, some summary of comments from local agencies, and these are what I would call typical comments from the City of Roseville, Placer County, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Central Valley Regional Quality Control Board, and the State Clearinghouse. These are typical comments related to water quality, making sure we're addressing comments from the regulatory agencies, and the responses to those comments that we will comply with all of these agency comments within the final environmental document. So just to step through the proposed improvements for Alternative 1, and these were one of the two alternatives that were presented to this board back in May. So Alternative 1, which we refer to as the carpool alternative, will provide for 6 lanes along I-80 from Blue Oaks, from the I-80-65 interchange to Blue Oaks, and that includes auxiliary lanes between Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road, and Pleasant Grove Boulevard. So this is shown in plan view here. You can see the coordination and conform with the planned I-80-65 interchange improvements on the south, extending through the Blue Oaks Boulevard interchange to the north. Shown in cross-section view, you can see here, this is the section between Galleria Stanford Ranch Road to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. We provide for 3 general purpose lanes in both directions, auxiliary lanes in both the northbound and southbound direction between Galleria and Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and then the 12-foot carpool lane in the southbound direction, picking up at Blue Oaks. The next section here, this would be Blue Oaks, Pleasant Grove to Blue Oaks. This would be north and southbound. We would provide for, again, the 3 general purpose lanes in both directions, and then the carpool lane in the southbound direction. Extending to the north of Blue Oaks, there are also auxiliary lane improvements planned between both Blue Oaks and Sunset Boulevard, and then Sunset, Whitney Ranch, Placer Parkway, and all the way up to 12 Bridges. So this would provide auxiliary lanes between Blue Oaks and Sunset Boulevard, and connect the existing auxiliary lanes at Whitney Ranch Parkway and 12 Bridges Drive to provide that continuous auxiliary lane within this stretch of 65. Shown here in cross-section view, you can see 2 general purpose lanes in each direction, and then the continuous auxiliary lane in both the northbound and southbound directions.
Thanks, Matt. So the project development team had 3 alternatives to consider. You see Alternative 1, the carpool lane, Alternative 2, our general purpose lane, and then Alternative 3, the no build. And based on the project purpose and need and the comments we received on the draft environmental document, the project development team is recommending that Caltrans determine that Alternative 1, the carpool lane, is the preferred project alternative for the Highway 65 widening project. I do want to note that both alternatives, 1 and 2, would be fully constructed within the existing Caltrans right-of-way, so there's no right-of-way required for either of these alternatives. This next slide, there's a lot of information here, so we've actually provided a handout to the board. But when we get down to it, the 2 build alternatives, Alternative 1 and Alternative 2, would both accomplish reducing existing traffic congestion and improving traffic safety. However, only Alternative 1, the carpool lane, would meet regional air quality conformity requirements. So the staff is requesting the board to support the project development team's recommendation to Caltrans to select alternative 1, the carpool lane, as the preferred alternative for the Highway 65 widening project. With board concurrence, we would then work with Caltrans to finalize the environmental document. Once we have environmental clearance of the project, we're then going to turn our focus to phase 1 of the project, and the improvements are actually shown here. As Matt mentioned, phase 1 is going to be a component of the overall project. It would provide 6 general purpose lanes between Interstate 80 and Blue Oaks Boulevard, and then auxiliary lanes between Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road, and Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Through the environmental process, we've received all of our regulatory agency concurrence letters, and the next step would be to get the permits and pay for mitigation so we could begin construction on phase 1. You'll see here that the full phase 1 is $24 million, and it's very unlikely in the next couple years we'd be able to move forward on that without a local transportation sales tax measure. So we've actually been looking at a strategy to build a southbound 3rd lane that would extend, a general purpose lane that would extend from Blue Oaks Boulevard all the way down to Galleria Boulevard, Stanford Ranch Road. And that total cost estimate is $11 million. And we're going to be talking with the Sparta board later this morning about funding that component. Of course, we're going to continue to provide project updates on the PCTPA.net website. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any board questions.
Questions, board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Good morning.
Good morning. Mike Arabedian for the Placer Group Sierra Club. Let me understand what we're doing. I guess the proposal is for you to support alternative 1 to Caltrans. We believe you need a certified environmental document before you act on it, just as terms of a CEQA legal requirement, but also in terms of practically speaking, because the document, as you know from our detailed submission, does not adequately inform anybody, the public or yourselves, about these decisions. So we're quite concerned about that. I mean, CEQA is about disclosure. It's disclosure required for the public and for yourselves and for Caltrans, for that matter. But we want to thank you for the response, and the staff gave us a full written response to the comments we had submitted and have reviewed them. One of the key things we asked for was a meeting with the Caltrans District 3 director, and we'd still like to have that meeting. The CEQA statute provides for asking for a CEQA meeting, and that's what we're looking forward to having. So there's a key question about, of course, CEQA is all about disclosing the environmental impacts and the alternatives and so forth. And one of the key problems with the document itself is that Caltrans in a number of places says we only have this jurisdiction. We don't have other jurisdiction for other things. And of course, they are referring to your board, of course, that has other authority, and the staff just mentioned there are things they're planning to do in the future. Well, those considerations about transit especially should be looked at. But there's a very similar response to operational improvements, safety improvements, other kinds of things that could be done to help traffic get moving right now and provide more safety and less accidents and so forth. And there's a common response in the document that says this particular proposal will not alone solve the same problems that the project does. Well, all these other alternatives add up to something that those alternatives should be in the document. You don't have a detailed response to all of our concerns, but what we're hoping is that you will not take this action until you do an environmental impact report. There are Caltrans just looking at the impacts in the right-of-way itself and saying we don't have jurisdiction outside does not address cumulative impacts that this will support, for instance. There's the whole range of problems we have, and so we don't think you should make this recommendation. So if there's are any questions?
I have none. Are there any questions? No, we have none, Mr. Garabedian. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board under comment on this item? Seeing none, we will close that session and bring it back to the board for action.
So move approval of staff's recommendation.
All righty.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve staff's recommendation on item H, the Highway 65 widening preferred alternative project. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is passed. And now we'll move to item I, the Executive Director Recruitment Contract Award. You have a salmon-colored sheet of paper here that'll tell you what's going on.
Good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. This item is in follow-up to the discussion at our last board meeting in regards to redoing the recruitment for the executive director position. This, as you may recall, the last effort was done in-house. We did go through that, found a candidate. Unfortunately, that candidate got a better offer from their current employer, and so as a result, I'm staying on until a new executive director is found, and as part of that, going through the recruitment process with a professional recruiter. With that, we issued a request for proposal back in November. We received 3 proposals for that, all within our stated budget, and the administrative subcommittee, as well as myself, ranked those proposals, and as a result, the recommendation is to award the contract to Ralph Anderson and Associates of Rockland. So that would be the staff and admin subcommittee recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the director, executive director? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Stan, you had your light on, did you?
So move approval.
Oh, okay. Anyone in the audience wish to address us on this item before we take action? All right, I'll need a second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item I, Executive Director Recruitment Contract Award. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. And now it's time to make a selection of the chair and vice chair for 2018, item J.
Yes, this item it's pretty straightforward. Under our bylaws, we have a rotation of the chairmanship of the board, and up for 2018 is the representative from the city of Auburn as the chair, and the representative from the city of Colfax as the vice chair. And so staff is making that recommendation. That would go into effect on January 1st.
All righty. Any comment? Any objection? Anyone in the audience wish to address this? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to action for action.
Move approval.
It's moved and seconded to approve item J, selection of chair and vice chair for 2018. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, any abstentions? Congratulations, Mayor Powers. You'll be the chair next year, and we'll find out who's going to replace Tony at the from Colfax. And now we will move to item K, an information item. It's a presentation, Placer County Transportation Planning Agency 2040 Regional Transportation Plan Development Process. Mr. Hoyt.
Morning, board members. So yes, 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. I know that it was a little less than 2 years ago that I was here before you asking for approval of our last Regional Transportation Plan. And our next transportation plan is not due till 2020. So really the question is, well, why are we starting maybe so early? You know, maybe that's a question in the back of your mind. But there's several reasons for that. First is SACOG is the Sacramento Area Council of Governments is also embarking on their Metropolitan Transportation Plan. SACOG has the federal responsibilities where we have state responsibilities. and their federal responsibilities require them to develop a metropolitan transportation plan every 4 years, which is slightly different from our cycle. With that, we wanted to get out in front of some upcoming meetings that they have with your staff, and also recognizing that many of you or your colleagues also participate in SACOG's committees and on their board. So we wanted to get out ahead of the process, identify that we're also kicking off the regional transportation plan, and try to distinguish the differences between the two. My goal today is really to identify some of the requirements, the changes, and how, again, we integrate with those two plans. And we'll wrap up with looking at the schedule. I anticipate really several more discussions on the various topics with you guys as we proceed through the next 2 years in developing this plan. The Regional Transportation Plan covers the western slope of Placer County, where in the basin area, the Regional Transportation Planning Agency for Tahoe covers the planning requirements for that. And it's no surprise that within the western slope boundaries, we've seen substantial growth in residential, commercial, and our business environment has grown also. And with this growth comes traffic issues for us to address. Future congestion, as Luke has talked about, finding creative mobility solutions to moving people around throughout the vast geographic areas of our corridor, of our county. And with that, the Regional Transportation Plan helps us to identify how we develop and implement all these projects in the future. Now, I know on first blush this slide looks a little complex, and to tell you the truth, it relatively is complex. I think we've all sat here and talked about projects and project delivery and the challenges with those and the hoops and hurdles that we have to jump through to get the projects on the ground. But the Regional Transportation Plan itself, from a statutory perspective, helps us to demonstrate our continuous and cooperative and comprehensive planning requirements with the state, with our local agencies. It also provides recognition to statewide planning processes that are going on and to integrate with SACOG's Metropolitan Transportation Plan. But in the end, the Regional Transportation Plan is a bottoms-up approach to developing our long-range transportation plan. It begins with local general plans, bikeway plans, corridor plans, and Caltrans plans that they have for the state highways. And the big takeaway from this slide is that while it's complex, it begins with the foundation from our local plans, local projects that are in your circulation elements. And with their inclusion in this plan becomes eligibility then to receive federal and state funds to implement those projects down the road, much like having the roundabouts within the Regional Transportation Plan for Colfax. Without the inclusion of that, it would take much longer, and there'd be a few more hurdles and hoops to jump through in order to get the CMAQ funding on those projects. So there's where the significance lies on this complex chart. At the heart of the matter, the Regional Transportation Plan is an investment plan. The investment plan itself is updated every 5 years for our processes. It allows the opportunity, the public, this board, and local agencies to look back on the plan to determine, has anything changed? How do we want to move forward for the next cycle of the plan? The components to the plan include the policy element, which is a series of statements on transportation, values of our county, and the individual cities on how we develop and implement transportation projects through the future. It also includes a financial element that identifies the reasonably available funding resources we'll have to construct and build these projects over time. It includes an action element that identifies both short-term and long-term projects that we want to pursue, and those projects are all constrained to the financial element and the revenue forecast that we have. It includes an air quality conformity component that looks at how our 6-county region meets the Clean Air Act requirements, and this portion and the tasks for this are largely conducted through SACOG and their activities. But it's incorporated into our process by reference. And it also includes an environmental document to identify potential impacts and mitigation measures through the future. I fully anticipate coming back to this board to talk about each of these elements over the course of the next 2 years, adopting draft project lists, revenue estimates, and so forth. And I'll talk about the schedule as we wrap up. So as I alluded to in the opening, less than 2 years ago we adopted our last plan. We have 2 more years before adoption of our next. And so I think the question is, what's changed? Well, our transportation funding needs have not changed. They're still largely the same that they were less than 2 years ago. Any significant projects haven't been built. There's not a new significant funding stream that are going to help deliver those, so our needs are still intact. Our project lists may vary. These may be from priorities, local priorities that may change the preference of projects, the order, the timing of projects in our local agencies. There may be some new projects that could be added to the list, and there's probably a few that will also be removed because they've been completed. I mentioned funding, still largely the same. There will be some nuanced differences with that. For example, the 2006 Proposition 1B funds will have been expended. We used some of those early on, and the 80 corridor, there's still monies available right now that are being spent on transit projects throughout the region, but those will be backfilled with Senate Bill 1 programs and funding, should it stick through a potential recall effort. But the real differences with the plan and the update will lie with the requirements, and those are the requirements that stem from federal, state, and Caltrans requirements for us in developing this process. We'll have new regional transportation plan guidelines that did clear up some ambiguities that we had previously with the development of our plans, but it also added some new topical areas for discussion. There is also more of a federal emphasis on performance-based planning, so we'll have to monitor and assess and document how we'll look at safety, our pavement conditions throughout the county, system performance, and our transit asset management. And there are also some new statewide policies that we'll need to get consideration to in the planning efforts, such as climate change and public health. Now, I know I mentioned earlier the integration of our plan into SACOG's Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And on the face of it, they're both relatively similar, both 20-year plans, both identify projects and programs that will be implemented over the period of time, and they're financially constrained. SACOG, because of their federal requirements and within legislation from Senate Bill 375, they are required to develop a sustainable community strategy. With SB 375, it requires SACOG to look at how they can reduce greenhouse gas emission pollutants from mobile emission sources by looking at a combination of land use and transportation scenarios. During SACOG's first two sustainable community strategies, they were able to meet the Air Resources Board 16% per capita GHG or greenhouse gas reduction for 2035. However, one of the significant differences this time is the California Air Resources Board is looking at a 19% per capita reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. So that is going to be one substantial difference that we may see in this plan. It's yet to be really fully grasped of how it will affect us, and the California Air Resources Board also still has the opportunity, if persuaded, to relook at that 90% figure. So I'll pause there just to see if there's any questions about the integration of these two and some of the differences between our plans.
All right, any questions for Mr. White?
Okay.
Seeing none, no.
All right. Seeing none, continuing on. To get just a little bit into the weeds here on the two plans, they look very similar as we kind of break out the different project components for the Regional Transportation Plan here in Placer County and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan for SACOG. The areas where we do interact and we look for data and information from SACOG on the plans is shown from the arrows here. We utilize their population, housing, and employment forecasts, which becomes a basis for our demographics. We develop our locally adopted transportation project lists, which then SACOG incorporates into the Sustainable Community Strategy scenarios based on our Memorandum of Understanding with SACOG. The SCS, the Sustainable Community Strategies, again, are those different combinations of land use and transportation policies or scenarios that may look at maybe more growth in the downtown Sacramento or more infill growth in certain areas, maybe more transit versus a different mixture of land use and transportation options. So again, our processes feed into their scenarios through that matter. We also work with them closely on the revenue estimates to find out what their forecasts may look like in the future with funding. At this point in time, we don't see any significant changes. There's still some talk at SACOG and across the state of a future vehicle miles traveled type of a tax that would replace a gas tax. Still unknown what's going to happen with that, but that's something we're also looking at. And to wrap up with our regional transportation plan, I just wanted to point out a few of the highlights of when we're coming back to you and at what topics. Some of those milestones will be coming to your staff in spring, early 2018, with a call for projects. That's where we're going to take all the projects in our regional transportation plan, dust them off, refine them, fine-tune those for submission to SACOG. In the summer, we'll release a request for proposals to secure an environmental impact consulting firm to develop the environmental document for this plan. We'll also adopt a draft list of project lists and revenue estimates later this summer, and then in fall begin our technical work and preparing the chapters. In 2019, we'll continue on with a lot of the preparation of the document and coordinate with SACOG on the development of their preferred sustainable communities strategy scenarios, and then finalize the documents within the summer and fall for public release. So this is our tentative schedule here, hitting a February 2020 adoption. I believe there is room in here to accelerate the process should we choose to. There are a few milestone points that we'll be coordinating with SACOG on, and we'll have to pivot from there. But this is our schedule at this point in time, and there is opportunity for us to come back to you on these items and look at any changes that we may want to undertake. With that, I'll take any questions. And
All right. Any questions for Mr. Hoyt? See none. Anyone in the audience wish to address this?
Yeah, Mike Garabedian, Placer Group Sierra Club. I'm wondering, since we have representation on SACOG, if our members on SACOG, at least those who might know now, would be involved in this process at SACOG in their new plan.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Of course.
Absolutely.
So there's clearly coordination, and I guess if you look at the SACOG board, we have about, I think, 22% of the board membership if you sort of divide the number, so we're significantly represented there, I guess I would say.
Yeah, we have good representation from Placer County. Thank you. All righty. Seeing no more questions, thank you, Mr. Hoyt. That was a good presentation. We will now move to item L, Executive Director's Report.
Yes, the highlight item is that we opened bids on November the 14th for the I-8065 Interchange Phase 1 project. And to refresh your memory, this is just a relatively small portion of the overall project that will widen the viaduct section that goes over the railroad tracks, essentially where the 2 lanes from the loop going from eastbound I-80 to northbound 65 merges with the 1 lane ramp that comes from westbound 80 to northbound 65. Right now that narrows down to just 2 lanes, causing backups. This will be widened out to 3 lanes over that viaduct section and provide a double off-ramp at Galleria / Stanford Ranch Road, and make improvements to that interchange in coordination with the Highway 65 JPA. And Caltrans has put up a significant amount of funds for this project because of the safety and operational problems. There have been significant accident rates because of those traffic backups that are happening all the time. It also connects an auxiliary lane going northbound between Galleria and Pleasant Grove. So for a roughly $50 million project, it does a lot. Okay. We opened the bids. They're just a smidge above the engineer's estimate, but we all sharpened our pencils, all of the partners on the funding, and came up with a little bit of extra money, and it is being awarded. The contractor, the winning contractor, is Flatiron. That they were one of the contractors on the Lincoln Bypass, so they have a great track record. And the most exciting part, at least for me, is that next Wednesday at 10 a.m. there will be a groundbreaking ceremony for the project. And that will be at the back parking lot of the Destiny Christian Church in Rockland there. And it sort of overlooks that segment of the interchange, or excuse me, the viaduct section. And hopefully everybody has gotten their invitations. Those went out last week. And really hope that not only yourselves, but a large segment of the community will be out there to help us celebrate. That concludes my report.
All right. Any questions for Celia? All right. Any direction to staff? Keep up the good work. How's that? And the rest, we have some informational items in our packet if you wish to review them. And our next regularly scheduled PCTPA board meeting will be January 24th, 2018, under the leadership of Mayor Powers. And with that, we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.